Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I'll be chairing this panel this morning. To my left is Mr. Brent McIntyre, and to my far left is Mr. Marcel Laurendeau. Our assessor this morning is Mr. Jeremy Pohl, and our recording secretary is Ms. Michelle Nepin. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessors make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record, and I ask that everybody please turn their cell phones off. Thank you. The first matter we'll deal with this morning is 1272 Dugald Road.
Do you want to switch it?
Yeah, we would prefer to do different properties, just that they're similar in nature. So rather than doing that one, we want to...
If we do...
Sure, I was just following the...
If we do 1400 at Phillips, we can carry forward the arguments to the next three.
No problem. 1400 at Phillips.
The first one...
We will begin with that.
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence will be testimony for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you state your full name, please?
Sid Story.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for everyone to catch up.
Just one second.
Oh.
See for half an hour and take a while finding my files. 1400.
That's okay. Mr. Story, are you ready, Mr. Story?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
thank you very much.
perfect. All right, Mr. Pohl, please proceed.
File number is 194665. Roll number is 050040200000. Civic address is 1400 Phillips. The roll is for 2020, and the assessed value is $9,963,000. There is a non-compliance element to this property. We're asking for Section 53(3)B in this Section Act to apply, and if there is a reduction, that it follows Section 54(3)2. If you turn to page 12 in the brief, they did report, but the report was not filled out on the expense side. The property is owner occupied. They're reporting a book rent, so there is no real rent to use, but the expenses we do require is an income and expense form. They failed to provide the expenses, therefore the response is inadequate. We're basing the request on that. I have a recent municipal board order to hand out that will cover this. I apologize for the quality of the print. It's kind of 3D-ish. This printer is not the greatest.
Thank you.
I know, as soon as the print is like, come on, just a second. So, I'll go over this just generally first. This was for 360 Portage, the Hydro Building. This was for a business assessment. For a business assessment that had a non-compliance matter related to it. Of course, the only thing that's reported on a income expense questionnaire when it's an owner-occupied building, and this building is an owner-occupied building, is the expenses. So they failed to report the expenses. They failed to report the INE in total, so there was no INE submitted. There was 3 parts to this hearing, or this deal. If you look at the issues on page 2, 1, do the deferral penalty provisions of the Act apply to the City of Winnipeg business assessments. This deals explicitly with only expenses because that's all you get off of income and expense questionnaire. Today we're dealing with realty, but we're still dealing with expenses. So the other point 2, is whether the owner failed to comply with the request for information. And then the third point is if there was non-compliance by the owner, should the board impose a deferral penalty in this case? Those 2 points are not related to the first point that we're dealing with here today. The second point was that the income expense mailer, turns out I was part of this hearing. There was an error in presenting the right role, presenting the right location to where it went. There was a merger of several titles into one. Turns out the assessment department brought in the former title with the one which wasn't going to where it was sent, but the original mailer was based on the several titles before they got amalgamated. So we missed on that. I presented this at hearing. It was questioned. It was not something that was even in question until the actual hearing. I got caught blindsided. Always didn't have any issues with it up until that. So. Now, having said that, that's unrelated to the point that we're dealing with today. And then, if there was a non-compliance, should it be awarded at the municipal board department? So, that's again not related. So we'll just get back to the expense side of things, because all you get from the income expense questionnaire for business assessment is the expenses. So we are talking about that. So if we go through the literature that was submitted, we look highlighted on page 6. Submission that a summation of what is submitted. Mr. Pohl confirms that.
You're on page 6 of the decision now.
Page 6 of the decision. Sorry.
You're letting your pretty cards. Sorry,
that's okay. Are you
hungry now?
Okay. Mr. Pohl confirms that in a multi-tenant site where there are independent operated businesses, the owners will not be subjected to a deferral penalty by the city assessment and taxation department because the tenants will not have possession and control of the site, and the department cannot prove that the non-compliance is not the fault of the tenant. This is more specific where the site is owner occupied. He notes that the taxpayers are subjected to penalty on both realty and business assessments because they have possession and control over the site and the related expenses. So in this case here, it is a realty assessment. They do have possession and control of the entire site, and they would know of the cost that was left out. If we skip over to page 20, which is the analysis and conclusions of point 1. Do deferral penalty provisions of the Act apply to the City of Winnipeg business assessment? On the question of whether the penalties and provisions of the Act apply to the business assessment in the City, the Board considered the submissions of the parties and reviewed the provisions of the Charter and the Act in making its determination. And I'll highlight the major points on page 22. The Board also notes that the assessor exercises his or her right to request information is done so in the context of preparing the general assessment under Section 9.1 of the Act. This section requires that the assessor can make assessments of all assessable property. Highlighted in the second paragraph that's highlighted. Further to Section 16.1c of the Act that allows the assessor to request income and expenses, we're dealing with expenses here today, information for business premises for the purposes of gathering information for a general assessment. A failure to comply with the 16.1 triggers the deferral penalty provisions of 62.2 of the Act. We're dealing with the sister clause at Board revision level today. Those provisions require the Board to specify in its order that any reduction in assessed value of the person's property is not to take effective to the year following the year in which the application relates. So if they fail to provide, if there's a failure, it goes with it automatically. If there is bound to be a failure. The Board is satisfied with the language of 16.1c that the Act references the value in the assessed value definition is not limited to information requests or determinations of value for realty property only. We're dealing with realty property here today, but also for business assessments. The Board finds that the annual rental value calculation for tax purposes is an assessed value for the purposes of disclosure and deferral penalties for provisions of the Act. The Board is persuaded that such an interpretation is consistent with the annual rental value and occupancy costs. We're dealing with today occupancy costs and expenses. Information sought by the assessor on the INE. So, on the following page, the Board further notes that there are minor disclosures and penalty clauses under Part 8 of the Act that apply to the Board revision. The statutory authority given to the Board revision, the order to order the deferral penalty is found at Section 54.3.2, which is what we're dealing with here today. The Board points to the various Board revision decisions referred to the assessor, whereby, in a case of non-compliance, the deferral penalty was ordered in regards to business assessment in the City. The Board finds that it has similar statutory authority to order the deferral penalty for business assessments in the City. The authority is found under 62.2 of the Act. After review of the applicant's legislation and the consideration of the evidence and arguments presented by the parties, the Board finds that deferral penalties provisions of the Act apply to the business assessments in the City. So, what we're dealing with here today is realty. We're dealing with expenses related, missing expense related information. That's why we're asking the non-compliance penalty for realty. This hearing deals with a business assessment in relation to owner-occupied property that failed to report. They went over it in full, in 3 parts. If business assessments do apply to non-compliance, they do, and that's based on the missing expense-related items that would not be reported. In this case here, for the 360 portage, they found that where the INE was sent wasn't appropriate as a failure, but they did review it in context in full to give authority to ask for business non-compliance in relation to expense-related matters for an expense questionnaire. So today we're just dealing with simple realty property. They failed to report their expenses. They know their expenses. They're in possession and control of that information. They failed to report it, so we're asking for the non-compliance and the deferral.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
Yes, I'm reading their questionnaire. I'm having a little trouble understanding what you didn't get that you needed.
Sure.
Where's the second letter? Where was the letter suggesting compliance? Typically you send them out, they're registered, you sign for it, you send them those. These people have been there for 30 years in this building. Some people find the same questionnaires. How can they possibly all of a sudden be non-compliant?
We don't deal with Richardson and Boeing at the Court of Appeal level. References to Richardson. We don't deal with past IME submissions, whether they're compliant or not. We look at the individual IME that was submitted. This individual IME is missing all of the expense-related items for this property. We use expense-related items for our models, for appeal defense. This is a warranted expense and this is warranted information that we need, as indicated in this order, this recent order, which dealt with the business assessment matter, but also referenced realty assessment.
So you're not debating the fact or questioning the fact that they did send it in? You're just questioning whether there was sufficient information.
Yeah,
what action did the city take, i.e. pick up a phone? You've redacted all the names here, but you have Joanne May, who's a controller, and you have Edwin, who was there for 40 years. Did the city make any attempt to pick up the phone and say, we do have property taxes, we have total expenses, 243,416 on your page, on page 12 of the questionnaire. Is that the number that you wanted broken down, the 243?
No, we were looking for the utilities, hydro, water, sewer, snow removal, all the expense-related items that we
Well,
use.
that's what those are. Those are total expenses, 243.
They're highlighted in the field.
Okay. And no second letter went out.
There was no need for a second letter. They responded to it. We only send a response letter out when we don't get, or a certified letter out when we don't get the first initial response. We had the initial response.
So what is the end game? What are you asking? Why would you ask the board for a penalty on a car dealership that are all owner-occupied? That's acknowledged. Nothing has changed. They weren't informed and still don't know that whatever they're doing all of a sudden has not become acceptable. This is the same format they've used, to the best of my knowledge, for many years. Is that correct?
I reviewed a few lineys leaning back, yes.
Yeah, and you have no record of them being non-compliant before?
That's not, we don't need to prove failures in the past.
I'm just asking you,
No.
were they compliant in the past?
Well, based on what I reviewed, no.
Okay. And you redacted all the signatures for what reason?
Privacy issues, we're not putting contact information in.
Okay. And what is the reason for all of the company's branch information?
To prove that they are owner-occupied.
They tell you that in the questionnaire.
I still do my due diligence to ensure that they are owner-occupied.
Okay.
We have,
I can't really...
I once had the argument that they are something other than owner-occupied. I'm just doing the title search.
Ranjo, the Gochi group?
They are owner-occupied.
They're all owner-occupied, but two of them have managers on profit sharing. That may be where you got confused.
I once had an agent argue that they are neither owner-occupied nor there's something else. Then
Okay, Joan, that's not,
So that's my
that's
whole
not
point.
an issue today.
So my whole point is I'm just doing my due diligence.
I think I'm the only agent that's ever handled the Gochi group, so I don't think that was the case, but it doesn't matter.
No, not with
Okay,
me, no.
thank you. I really don't know. I don't have a lot to say because I don't see there's a problem.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lorando, do you have any questions?
This isn't the complete board order, is
No,
it?
I have it here if you need.
Please.
But my point was that the other 2 points are unrelated to the matter that we're going through today. But if you do need to see a full copy,
No, yeah, thank you.
I didn't want to go over a full. You can take time if you want to recess and look at it.
We will.
I highlighted. I can give the other 2 if you need, so you can all have a copy.
Mr. Lorando, could you pass those down?
My point is that I was there on that day. I did the hearing, obviously. The first point was whether non-compliance should apply to business assessment in the city. The second point was, did we prove the failure?
All right, no, we heard
And the
your...
third point was, should it be at the municipal board? So ultimately, they denied based on the failure.
This isn't the same.
Hmm?
This isn't the same. Where's my eyes? They're not the
No,
same.
it's the same.
Oh, it's 23. When I went to first 23, I thought it was 28. It's blurred.
Just want a fuzzy copy.
Yeah, no, I apologize. We've been having printer issues on our floor. When I printed that out this morning, it was better. Does the board need a few minutes to read through if they want to? It's 29 pages.
You know, perhaps, Mr. McIntyre, do you have any questions at this time? And then we'll take a recess.
No, my only question was where's the rest of the order in this
Yeah.
here?
I just tried to simplify it down to the one single point, which proved the other 2 points are unrelated to today's. We have the in our hands. It wasn't where did it go or where did it not go.
We heard, so we're going to take a recess and review everything.
Before we review it, we'll take care of it.
All right, the board has met to consider your request for application for non-cooperation pursuant to section 53(3)(b) of the Municipal Assessment Act, and after reviewing the evidence, we have decided we are going to deny the request for non-cooperation, and the assessment department will proceed first with their evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So 2020 assessment value is $9,963,000. The property was built in 1990, has an addition in 2006. Property has 53,994 square feet area. We turn to page 8. The aerial shot of the property. It's on McPhillips, Maple Glen. If you look, an aerial photo expanded below is right across from North Gate Mall. Page 9 there are some additional aerial photographs as well on page 10 and on page 11. We will go through, first I'll go through the argument on page 3 for the rent. I'm sure we've heard this all before, but I'll refresh everyone's memory. These are owner-occupied properties, the entire city-wide. Virtually now every single car dealership is owner-occupied. There are no rents. So in order for us to come up with a value, we have to take the most nearest orange and compare it to this apple. Good way of looking at it. So what we looked is for similar buildings that are steel shell, slab on grade construction, in retail areas, standalone buildings, that if the owner of these properties were to vacate their property and look for a building to rent, what would the marketplace rent be? As you can see through comparables 1 through 27, these are all standalone big box stores, slab on grade construction, steel walls, steel roof, a bit of mezzanine space in all of them, residual office space in all of them. We have an inventory of a little over 500,000 square feet. The average rent is $18.86 a square foot. The weighted average is $18.05, and the median is $18.29. So it's a very tight analysis, as you can see from the results, very good analysis. So that is the rent rates that we are pulling our information from and applying it to the subject property. We also additionally looked at a few comparables that do exist. Comparable 28 is 1284 Main Street, just down Main Street here. It's an NPI claim center. They have a very large bay. I've been in it, I don't know how many vehicles, we could probably hold 30 vehicles. It's very large. It runs the length of the building, and on the front half of the building there's some office space for NPI office staff and their work. So their net rent is $19.50 triple net. We have another old dealership, or I should say we have an older building that was converted to a VSG at 3570 Portage. It is at $13 a square foot. We also have an older VSG on Regent at 3680, which was built in 1988. It's now a used car dealership. It's in at $12.50. And then we have the comparable 31, which is 2537 Pembina, which was a contentious rent a couple cycles ago in the last cycle, but I'll get to this in more detail. This was an arm's length rent at $25.16 a square foot, triple net. It was a bit of an elevated rent in order to facilitate an agreement to purchase, and I'll get to that in more detail as we go along. For these three rents here, we have an average of $17.54, a weighted average of $18.27, and a median of $16.25. And when you grab four comparables that are a little off, your analysis isn't so tight, and it shows up in the three ones there. But we're using the retail argument. I'll get to that in more detail as we go along. On page 4 is the workup for 63,994 square feet. We have approximately $11.96 a square foot, which produces a value, or I should say, potential rent of $765,248. Our standard parameters apply. 2% for vacancy gives us an effective gross income of $749,943. Expenses at 2% and shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $727,265. Capped at 7.3% gives $9,963,000. So it's the only income stream we have. It's a very simple thing. If you look on page 6, our retail rents, or retail cap rates fall within our range. We're actually higher. We're at the high end of it at 7.3. So when we go back to how we do this, I'd like to review the order, the single order that has been in place since 2004 that we use. It goes on the back on page 57 of my brief. And for those who may have heard this before, I'll just kind of briefly go over it. This was a deal that was done in 2003 and 2004 for 2003 assessment year, which was referenced in 1999 level of value. It was done between Stevenson and the city assessor. And basically, what comes from this is they valued this property based on look on page 62. They used 4 on-road dealerships, full-service dealerships, that showed net market rent ranging.
Which page?
62.
62.
So the market rent they used from rents that were deemed non-arm's length rents for car dealerships. In this marketplace today, we don't have that. And as far back as I've looked, I don't believe there has ever been that. It seems that these are always owner-occupied. And if there is a single individual that rents for a small period of time, that is definitely not the marketplace. They are all owner-occupied. So, as we go along the order, if you look at the back, I'll summate it pretty quick on page 64. They use car dealership rental rates to come up with their income value. They also interject future rehabilitation cost as well as a non-recoverable infrastructure cost, and they have that in the order as well. So those are the two main points that I have. If we look back at page, where was it? Page 12, I believe it was. We don't have any infrastructure costs on this property, so that should not be a contentious issue, but that is on other properties that are in condo development. This wasn't a condo development, so we don't deal with that. And then it's just simply that they're owner-occupied, so there is no rent that they're actually retaining in this property. So how do we come up with how do we follow this order? Can we follow this order? I don't believe we can follow this order anymore the way it was written, because the pool of information that we would draw from arm's length leases for car dealerships don't exist. So in this case, we go to the next comparable, which is type of comparable property type, which is the realty argument. If we're not doing that, then there's no way to apply this order. This is a basic approach. So I'll go over one other bit of information. Alternatively, if we're not going to be considering the income approach, how do we determine what market value should be? We start at page 18. We're going to look at a very basic group of sales that have occurred in the marketplace. There's 6 sales that have been reviewed. 2 of the sales, number 1 and number 6, are based on the 2 arm lengths rents that were in place, that were basically contracts that had options to exercise the purchase. That was based on the renter having that option, not the owner having it, meaning they paid a bit above market rent in order to facilitate an option to purchase, which they could exercise without the owner saying no. They didn't have the option to not purchase the property or deny purchase the property. So I'll go through here. The last 2 sales were, the contract was exercised in 2012, or I should say drafted up in 2012 with the purchase price known in 2012. The option to exercise was in March of 17 for both properties. So I'll just briefly go through them. One was for 2537 Pembina Highway, the front that we were speaking to. It was built in 2004. It has a gross floor area of approximately 9,500 square feet. Land area 48,000 square feet. Land to building ratio of 6.2. And their sale price was $3 million. Taken back to the square foot of the building, it was $313 a square foot for the building. This property on the next is Unit 500, 1717 Waverly, for comparable to. It was built in 2008. Has a gross floor area of 14,339 square feet. Land area of 152,000. So quite a big land area. 17 land to building ratio. And that was purchased in September 2010 for $4,095,000. That works out to be, at that point in time, $284 a square foot. Unit 400, 1717 Waverly, was a building built in 2007. Gross floor area of 15,154 square feet. Land area of 157,000 square feet, with a land to plan area of approximately 11.7. That was purchased in 2009 for $4.2 million. Unit 100 Waverly, built in 2003, has 42,000 square feet of gross floor area. Land area of 217,000. Land to plan area of 5.7. Purchased in 2013, December 2013, for $9.5 million, with a sale price of $225 a square foot. Comparable number 5, which is the board order, something copied from the board order that I referenced earlier. It's Unit 90, 3965 Portage. It was built in 1999. Has a gross floor area of 26,887 square feet, land area of 202,000, land to plan building area of approximately 8.98 or 9. Date of sale was February 2005. The sale price on the sales questionnaire, which we'll get to in a moment, was November 2013. That was purchased for $4,350,000. That sale price per square foot was $161 a square foot, and there was a municipal board order, which I just referenced, for 2003, which had an effective date, a reference date of 1999, which gave an order for $1,740,000. So, and then finally, 1496 Regent was built in 1977. It had an addition. There was 16,000 square feet. at the time of sale. The land area was 257,000. Land development area was 16, and the contract exercise again was drafted and signed January 16 of 2012 and exercised at the end of the term. At March of 2017, had $6 million. So that had a square foot bill and sale value of $375,000. So if we go through here, on page 1 is the comparable for 2537 Pembina. I spoke with the real estate manager on a number of occasions to ensure that this was correct, because we had a lot of pushback from different tax agents indicating that it was not a good sale, or the parameters of the sale no one really knew, no one really presented any evidence, so I went straight to the source. She worked with the automotive division for Pattison Group and responded in turn. This property was sold, it was arm's length. There was and I'll read it just verbatim at the bottom. Closed on acquisition on March 1st, 17. The property was leased at an above market rent with intent to purchase. Purchase price was based on appraisal that had been completed around the time of the lease was entered into. We do not have a copy of the appraisal. I didn't see a copy of the appraisal. The price was for real estate only. It did not include any business cost, value, equipment, furniture, etc. They couldn't buy the franchise or anything associated with it because they were the franchise. On the next page, the sales questionnaire, which indicates as such. I did a follow-up, obviously, to the sales questionnaire, and I investigated the sale. On page 23 is Unit 2, that is already referenced. On page 24 is the sales questionnaire. They highlight consideration matches their sworn value at $4,095,000. They also indicate that there was nothing else other than the real estate included in the sale. And there's the company searches on the following pages, which show that they were arm's length, purchaser and vendor. On page 32, which is Unit 400, 1717 Waverly, we have no sales questionnaire reported, but I did do the company search to indicate was there any association between purchaser and vendor. There was not. Separate arm's length situation. That is a good sale as well. Unit 100. We did run another analysis on this. No sales questionnaire was reported. We did do the sale. We did do the company searches as well, and it's shown that they are non-related. They are arm's length. Page number 44, which was comparable number 5, Unit 90, which was single municipal board order indicating how we're to be car dealerships. We have a sales questionnaire. You can see that the sworn consideration was $4.35 million, and the consideration paid was $4.35 million, and the sworn value was the same. As indicated, they purchased this agreement. Was done on November 13, 2004, and they indicate in point 4 that there was nothing else involved. It was just real estate only. On the following pages, I also do a company search just to make sure that there was no relationship when none was found. So, page 53. This was done at 1486 Regent, the other property that was purchased by the Pattison Group that they were a tenant of. As you can see on page 54, similar to what we already went over for 2537 Pembina, it was an arm's length. They had a close on March 17. The property was leased with an above market rent with intent to purchase. The purchase price was based on an appraisal that had been completed around the time of lease we entered into. She didn't have a copy of it, or wouldn't provide a copy of it, I should say. And the price was real estate only, did not include anything. There's no cost of the equipment or furniture value or anything like that. They tore down, there was a small building at the back of the site. If you look on page 53, right where it says 1490, they tore that building down right after they acquired the site. And then recently, within the last year, they actually tore down their front building as well, their actual older dealership, and they put up a new, quite a large new building as well. So at the purchase price, at the purchase point, they didn't indicate that they were doing any of that. I don't believe that that would influence the value of the property. But full disclosure, I guess they made a business decision that sales are good there, and they decided to put up a new building. So, with that having said, our assessed value, if you look at it on a price per square foot basis, is $155 a square foot. So when I'm looking at this property, I can't follow, in summary, when I'm looking at this property, I can't follow that order because those leases don't exist anymore. They haven't existed for some time, if they ever did, I'm not quite sure, for the order they used to determine that order. In order to do an income approach, as indicated in the order, we were to look at the next nearest comparable, which would be the retail big box store argument. They are selling a product, they are in a retail location, no, they are in power centers. You see the rents that are attributed there. If the ownership group were to leave where they are and look for a similar building of similar utilities in the location, that's the rental rate that they would be paying. They'd be paying about $18 a square foot, arguably a few dollars more, a few dollars less. And I bracket that with an actual look at the actual sales and 6 sales that happened leading up to the reference date. Arguably, some of them are a little older than the reference date, but 2 that are right at the reference date. So. With that being said, I think a value of $9,963,000 is reasonable. I think it's well defended based on the market information we have and the actual sale of the 6 dealerships in the marketplace.
Here. Mr. Story, do you have?
Mind if I get a water?
Oh, of course.
All set?
Please proceed with your
Good morning,
questions.
Chairman of the Board, and Mr. Paul. Let's cut to the quick. Let's go to page 3 of your brief. Basically trying to condense what you just said a moment ago. There are no leases. Which means that there's no way to determine what an actual fair market rent would be. And there are no sales, so it's very difficult to determine what a reasonable capitalization would be. Is that correct?
You wouldn't be able to based on vehicle dealership information.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
And then what you did is you developed a list in here of some 30-odd big box retail stores, almost on the principle of substitution. What you're suggesting to the board is you could almost sell cars out of those particular facilities. Is that what I understand?
A better way of saying it is these are the most bare bone basic buildings. They're steel roof, steel wall, slab on brick construction. Your rate of return on these would be based on a $18 or so net rent. If these dealerships were to leave where they are, where else in the marketplace would they be able to get a similar utility building that would provide the same utility? I'm seeing that these buildings for big box locations would provide a little less of utility because of the nature of them. They're just big empty spaces.
Okay.
But that's the rate of return that the other owners of properties are expecting. So if they were to develop sites and they were to go into the marketplace and get a similar building that they occupy now, they would at least need the rate of return that Buildings that have somewhat less utility and the same type of locations they're looking for would get.
Okay. And so I gather what you're saying is that of this, of these 27 comps, they're all big box retail stores. Some of them in the Polo Park area, some in the new Seasons Tuxedo, correct?
Yeah. Some on there and some on St. James.
By definition,
The,
by definition, a big box retail store is a store that occupies an enormous amount of physical space and offers a variety of products to its customers. Big box retailers focus on large sales volumes. Is that your understanding as well?
you could say that, yes.
Okay. Then when you look at your summary, page 37, page 3, I'm sorry.
Page 3?
Page 3 of your brief.
Okay.
We're going to, our only two issues today are cap rate and market rent, so we're going to spend 2 minutes on market rent. That's what this is about. So I look at that, Mr. Paul and I note that up until 2016, we used to use a break point of 25,000 square feet for a car dealership. To be a complete car dealership, it was assumed that you would have to have that. So if one were to look at your list, there are only 5 properties that are over 25,000 square feet. First one is comp number 4, which is 29,000 square feet. And that's located on the corner of Ellis and St. James Street.
Yeah.
That's called Ashley Furniture. Have you been in Ashley Furniture?
No, that one would be Staples.
Pardon me?
That would be Staples. It would be the old.
Staples across the street, no Sears. If you drop down to, that's number 13. That's the former Sears furnishing store was relocated, it was demised.
Yeah.
It's now half Staples and half.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also on that corner. Have you been in the Staples store?
Not since it's been converted, but in the old Sears.
Okay. And then if you drop down again, the next one would be comp number 16. And that's Home Outfitters, Hudson's Bay.
Yeah.
Have you been in that store?
From time to time, yeah.
And that is located at 710 St. James Street, which is almost shadow anchored by Polo Park. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then we drop down to comp number 18. And that's Best Buy.
Yeah.
You know where that is? That's right across from what was almost a Target store, across from the cinema, Polo Park, Silver City. That's Best Buy.
Correct.
They sell electronics. Have you been in that store?
Yes, I have.
And is it bare bones?
Well, there's different areas, but if you look at it, it's basically a big
It's a
open.
big space.
Big space.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's my point.
I know, but I'm going to let you make your point. This is not to argue, this is just to make sure that the board is getting the information that makes sense. And I think we all understand your argument. We don't agree with it, or I don't agree with it, but we understand it. So we don't have to fight, we can just talk.
Each of us have been here numerous times. We know our arguments.
Yeah. Okay, number 20 is a 28,000 square foot, so it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the fifth and only, and last larger space. And that's Bed Bath & Beyond. You know where that's located?
Yeah, right across.
Right behind Polo Park, right by CGOB, right by Chorus. Okay. Now what do we know about Polo Park? Is Polo Park a draw, a retail draw? in your opinion?
Absolutely.
I phoned them this morning. For last year, slightly down scary, they had 10,500,000 customers at Polo Park. They called their office this morning. Slightly down, believe it or not, from the previous year, which is scary if you're a retailer. However, having said that. So having not been in those stores, you still think that from Ashley Furniture, Staples, Home Outfitters, Best Buy, Bed Bath & Beyond, that you could sell cars, in your opinion?
That is not the rationale that we're using.
Okay. So you're just trying to say what an investor would what would his options be in investing his money? And he can invest in a car dealership, which is highly unlikely, never happens, because they're built to suit and they're purpose-built, and you're at the mercy of the manufacturer.
I'm just so we're clear on the argument, because I'm pretty sure we were, but I'll go over it again.
Well, I've got it. No, I don't want to go over again. I want to finish where I am if I can. Then let's look at the top 4 items in your analysis. Now we're forgetting about the fact that these 10,000 square feet are not really enormous and don't really meet the definition. They're closer to a flex warehouse if you wanted to take this argument forward. But the first 4 were from 217, correct?
Yeah.
And you can do it real quick. You can see that the median is $14, and you can see that the mean is $14.80. Well, you know, you'll see the mean. $14. There's only 4 items in there.
Are you disregarding the rest of the comparables?
No, I'm doing the current ones first. I think they're the most relevant. But the $14 is the median.
I think a pool size of 4 comparables is not enough to judge a marketplace.
Well, we're looking at 27, but we're trying to isolate it. And typically, you know, you've been around long enough. Some of these leases, if you were part of some of these older lease start dates, 213, would hardly be relevant in the market today.
Let me rephrase it. I go up to the marketplace, I look at rent, I bring in all the information that's at least up approaching the reference date and the lease rates that are still being paid at the reference date.
Yep.
If I had 30 comparables that leased up in 2017, I would put more weight on those. But the fact is, of what's leased up, of the stock that's leased up that's comparable and similar, there's only been 4.
Okay.
That doesn't disregard the rest of the leases that are in place. We have to take the best evidence that we have in front of us.
But if you were to take your argument one step further, wouldn't all these 10,000 square feet spaces, and there's a lot of them, wouldn't they be more appropriate as a flex warehouse as opposed to a big box retail?
They're being used as retail, they're in retail.
I know, but
they're being
you're trying
used for retail
to
purposes.
impose them onto an unknown, which is what a dealership would rent for.
They're selling, they have pedestrian traffic coming down to the site that is there for commerce.
Mm-hmm.
This is what car dealerships have. This is the component.
Let's move on to the bottom of page 3. Now you're looking at some transactions that have occurred that are more vehicle related, not
Yes.
big box retail, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now you mentioned you've been in 1284 Main Street.
Yeah.
And that is a Autopack claim center, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's 44,000 square feet, is that correct?
Correct.
And it's...
No, it's 20,000.
No, it's not, it's 44,000. It's 44,000 square feet. And it's got 4 different areas in the building. 2 at 14,000, 1 at 4,500, 1 at 9,844. That's my question. Where do you come up with 20,000 square
That's what we have on our records. We have a large bay. I've been in the bay. I've also been on the office space when I've had a few accidents. Obviously, I've been there for that.
Okay. So just, I'll read this to you just for your comment, and then I'll admit it as rebuttal. 1284 Main is vehicle related. It's an Autopack calls claim center. You drive in one side, you go to your paperwork, you go up the other side, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And record number 1 is a premise area of 14,938. Record number 2 is 14,688. Record number 3 is 4,500 square feet. And record number 4 is 9,874 square feet. And in the BA it shows it's 44,000.
Can I see that?
Yeah.
Where do you get that from? You're going to give us a paper again?
That's
Can I try writing?
Comparable for 3 years.
I'm just trying to find, the object of the exercise is to find out where the 22,000 came from. They tell me that they're the only tenant, that it's, there's no other tenants in the building.
That's for,
Probably 50/30.
No, they're one site.
Oh, you got one.
No, that's
No, I got that. Well,
Yeah, you gave yours away.
Have you not had this issue in the past with other people?
I've never had this issue. I presented this on numerous occasions,
Okay.
with yourself included. So
No, not
is
this
it-
property, huh?
No, the comparable. All of this is the same standard comp sheet that I've been using.
This one wasn't
Car
used last year.
dealership. No, for car dealership, this comparable has been used numerous
Oh, I
times.
thought you said that with me, but it hasn't been used.
Okay, well, that's neither here nor there. Let's deal with it.
Okay,
To-
so this
what's
is
in
new
front of
for
us
me.
today?
I can't confirm this.
Okay.
What my point is, we're not using the comparables 28 through 31. That's just a check. Where I've explained we're using the retail
Yes,
component.
I know,
of the
but you're trying to paint a picture here, and we're just asking for clarification. It's like your photocopier, it's a bit fuzzy.
No. Come on. Best I could.
That was the best one so far.
I tip my hat to you.
Goodness me.
Okay, well, let's keep going, we're on a roll. In the past, and I've got the information here, suffice it to say, I won't, 3570 Portage Avenue was a void auto glass and office space, correct?
Yeah.
And,
Just for clarity on that, since you're asking me about that,
yeah,
I researched this, I actually reviewed it based on my last appeal. It's
Yeah.
currently vacant,
Yes.
just went vacant. I guess the collision center that opened up next to it ended that business.
but it hadn't been occupied, somebody might have paid rent, but it hasn't been occupied for the last couple of years.
I want to say about March of this year. if I remember
Okay. And you
correctly.
know that because we had that last year, I have it written, as a matter of fact, I brought it. But we brought evidence that it was a semi-gross lease because they weren't paying their own utilities, you
We
recall?
went through this in numerous detail the last year and at other cycles. They report irregular reporting where it could be a $13 net, or it could be
Or
$11
$8.41.
or $11.47 net.
Okay, well,
There's
let me-
such irregular
I've got it
reporting,
here,
it's
and
very
I
difficult.
can show you if you need it, but I just want to show the difficulty, both the board, but for yourself in finding comps that make any sense. Go to your 66,000 square feet, and this thing is,
But my point, Mr. Story, we're not using the 28 through 31 comparables to derive the value. We're
well,
using
you're asking the
comparable
board
1
to
through
consider them, so I
27.
think you are using them. Okay, but bottom line is, we have a disagreement. The actual rent that was decided last year, as I recall, and I have some stuff with me, is $8.41, and that's because the utilities were paid as part of the rent, the semi-gross. But we have dealt with that property in the past, you agree?
Yes, there's
Okay.
been some contentious issues.
And the
there.
next one, 3680, was a former Hyundai dealership. Remember the Mazda and Hyundai were almost twins next to each other? And that's your next one?
It's an older utility. It's an older
36.
dealership that it doesn't have the utilities that would service today's.
Yeah, 7,200 square feet. So
Yeah.
it's hard to compare a 7,200 square foot Mazda store with 66,000 square feet.
These are the only comparables that we're using for auto-related because these are the ones that have leased up. So
Yes,
my
yeah.
point is, this is just a
Well, but
check.
you're using them, but you're
You
not.
have subpar utility
Mhm.
for 29 and 30, and you have lower rent.
Mhm. And then your last one, we've had a lot of conversations about this. This is Mr. Pattison coming to Winnipeg because he wanted a Subaru dealership. And you mentioned twice in your dissertation that they paid slightly above market rent. We don't know what that means. But we do know that the day, I called them as well as you did, the day that they closed on the transaction, they put a sign on the property saying it was for lease or redevelopment. And they started redeveloping almost immediately. Is that fair comment?
For,
For the Frontier, they moved. He bought it to get the Subaru dealership.
yeah,
And coincidental to taking over the business, he assumed a lease, they put a for sale or redevelop sign on the property. Not property, you're not with it?
I am not aware. I've heard
So-
I've heard that this is going to be redeveloped in I've heard different stories.
But he's moved already, now he's in Wayne, US, right? Okay, now, just getting back, I forgot to ask a very important question. Because I have the privilege of dealing with a lot of provincial leases and a lot of federal leases, and they have some extraordinary demands. has anybody seen, from the department, seen the lease that MPI signed with?
I don't have access to that, I don't.
So you may see when you get that they may be a typical government agency, and I know there's some board members that know about government leases, and they can be very demanding. So no, you haven't seen their lease.
I haven't personally seen the lease. We're going from I verified each and every one of these rents based on the INE, so the sworn, the signature of the authorized signee,
Would MPI
indicating that that's first-hand knowledge that they're accurate, complete, and true.
Okay, would MPI have signed a questionnaire, given you a questionnaire?
I can't tell you. We sent it to the owner. MPI is the owner.
Okay. And then, okay, that's fine.
Do you have any information on that? Do you have the lease?
City information. I'm trying to know. The reason I did this is I tried to figure out if your lease was correct.
But you don't know if it's not correct because you haven't looked at the lease.
No, I don't know it's not correct, but I do know the city of Winnipeg is saying it's a single occupied building, and they're saying they're the only tenant, and it's 44,000 square feet, not 22. So I would suggest that we put appropriate weight in that situation. Okay, so now that gets us kind of... Now, you're aware, I think, that in a dealership, car dealership, there are different qualities of finish in each section, correct?
Branding, yeah.
Yeah. So the majority of a car dealership is the showroom and the sales offices, correct?
Depends on how many cars you sell. Depends on how big your actual site
Well, if
is.
you're a complete car dealership, you have to have a showroom. You wouldn't be a car dealership if you didn't
That's
sell
not what I
cars.
said. I said if you were doing less volume of sales, you would have a lesser amount of back-end service bays, everything else. But if you have a larger volume, you would need a larger building with a larger utility. You see that on sites when you...
But the showroom and the building itself
depending on the dealership,
is part of
yeah.
the branding of the dealership. It's the image they want to project, correct?
Absolutely.
So, the degree of finish, and we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Historically, the degree of finish is better in the showroom where the customers come in than where they do the collision repair.
I would think so.
Fair comment? Okay.
Fair comment.
And similarly, the degree of finish would be less in the parts department where they inventory parts and last year's went through tires.
I think we can agree on that.
Okay. So you've got different degrees of finish.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Have you ever had any experience with Marshall and Swift?
It's a costing program, yes I have.
Pardon me?
It's a costing program, yes I have.
Are you familiar with it?
I haven't done costing in a little bit, but yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. So if one were to take the dealership, and let's simplify it. There's a showroom and sales office, correct? There's parts and storage, they call it, the parts and winter tire. And then there's service, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them have mezzanines. It's become very common because that's
Very
where
common.
Yeah, you stand there, you're Mr. Gauthier or Mr. McNaught or Mr. Delory, and you can sit and look at what's happening and see your domain down there and look after it, right? So that's very common.
Yeah.
So they have a different way of being determined as to what that rent is. If you were to take the rent on just a mezzanine, you may attribute it as being a Class B suburban office because there's no amenities there. There's
No, I would turn down that argument, absolutely. I've looked at numerous leases in the retail environment and different areas. These buildings lease out on one economic unit. I've never seen a separate mezzanine rate. I've never seen a separate storage rate. It's one economic unit.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that somehow we should differentiate the
Well,
rental
they do,
rates,
but
no more
they
exist for that.
they do rent out based on the different income streams, but we won't argue. So having said that, you acknowledge that. And then the other thing is some dealerships, coincidentally this particular dealership, has a basement, which is highly unusual. But Mr. McNaught's, or Mr. Gautier's has a basement,
I
correct?
believe it's a museum.
It was a museum for many years. that the public didn't have access to. They had to take you down and show you. And they were vintage cars. They weren't necessarily General Motors cars, correct?
I've never been, I've only heard.
Oh, yeah, okay. It was quite nice. He sold all his cars. It's now used as a business office. So you go down and with some anonymity and apply for your car loan. Okay. So we'll leave that go for now. And then I'm going to ask you to go to page 4 of your brief. And I'm going to ask you to identify the various locations in here, the 63,000, the 40,640. What is that?
40,640?
Yeah,
That's the
page
shop,
4 of your
that's the
brief.
shop area.
That's the shop area
Yeah,
or
the
the
C2.
showroom? What do you call shop? Showroom?
No, that'd be the front half, the largest.
called
bit-
showroom.
Yeah, sorry. The glazed in area at the front.
Place where people go and buy cars, right?
So, yes.
Sorry, so the 4640 is the showroom,
Yeah, if you
not
said-
the garage?
Yeah, if you look at the pictures.
And,
Sorry, I mean, misspoke. If you look at the pictures,
No, we got it.
no, we know everything knows
Yeah,
what a
that's
showroom
fine.
is, things for cars. Okay, Jeremy, it's at $12.10, so the model determined that that should be $12.10, correct?
correct.
And that's the main floor showroom.
Yeah, the large space.
Yeah, and the 12,158 square feet, is that the mezzanine?
Correct.
And the mezzanine is at a higher rate than the showroom? Is that possible?
And how we have it categorized, yeah. It's a
Okay,
smaller-
based on
it's
the
a smaller-
model.
It's a smaller size. It's nearly 4 to 1.
But it's a mezzanine, there's no elevator, escalator, it's a mezzanine. It's the second level.
Yeah,
Okay. And 11,196, is that the basement?
correct.
Is that being used for the dealership to the best, well, you have the
I
inventory.
mean, it's owner occupied.
So the model told you that a dealership with a basement would probably lease for $991 a square foot triple net, a basement, is that correct?
That the model predicted, yes.
Okay.
Or calculated.
As a model told you.
I'd like to point out that overall, it's $11.96 a square foot.
Yes, I
When I
agree.
take that information for the argument that we have for a building of such a size, we take it back to a retail environment where those are bare bone basic structures. You don't have all the extras in those. You have a bit of branding on anything that's there, for whether it be whatever your business is operating out of. But typically, those are just bare bone buildings. So that rate of return, the investment, the money that an owner would put into that, and the rate of return that you would need translates to an $18 rent. If you're saying these buildings are finished to a higher degree, as they are, they would need a higher rent than that. You would at least be on par with
Let's go
the
to
bare
your-
bone, and that's my
Okay.
Okay, page 64, Jeremy, of your
64.
brief. This gets back to, I must have missed something, because I wasn't exactly sure what point you were trying to make with this, bringing this in. This is a decision from several years ago.
Every agent brings this in, so does the assessors.
So you brought it in to show that they were recognizing an 11.5% cap rate, infrastructure, net present value of future. So you're aware that this particular property is in an auto mall, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that the subject isn't
It's
in an
not
auto
at
mall,
all,
correct?
yes.
And you're aware that last cycle, the non-auto mall stuff was generally about 0.5% higher in cap rate, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So here, and we know that what they have is they have the reason you're familiar with why they have an infrastructure reserve.
Yes, because there was an order in it.
There's what?
Because there was an order indicating.
No, the harsh reality.
The harsh, yes, they own
They
the
have an
street.
infrastructure because they're responsible for infrastructure.
I know, yes, we know that they own the, it's a condominium dealership. They own the
Corporation.
commonality of the roadway and that leads into it.
Well,
including,
unlike-
vacant front and-
Unlike a typical property owner in the city, they put in the services, and the city typically maintains them and then replaces them,
Yeah.
but not in a condominium. It's the responsibility of the condo court to have a reserve, and that's what that's all about.
Yes,
so you're not disputing that, you're just saying, why is this in here? I guess is my question.
Because it's the single order we have for car dealerships. I've highlighted that this is not a condo. The
And
infrastructure element,
because it's not-
the infrastructure element is not an issue at hand. I already highlighted that when I read through the order.
Okay. You want to say anything else? Sorry, I'm just having a minute. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lorendo, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Where were those sales you had with the dealerships? I was in the
Page
63, I think?
30, I think.
30.
Page 9, page 18.
18?
I am supporting
Yeah,
that.
there. You're right. We've had a lot of discussion about number one already.
Yeah.
And a number of hearings. That was a dealership at that time. It's no longer a dealership today. So we're not going to deal with that. It's moved on. Number two, bought as a dealership. Did it remain a dealership?
Yep.
So it was bought as a dealership. They became the agent of.
Yeah, if you look at page 23. So when we go through the entire sales questionnaires, they're indicating that, highlighted in yellow, this storm consideration is $4,095,000. Or this consideration paid is $4,095,000. The storm value is $4,095,000, and that there is no business or anything, and just real estate. There's no other component to that. And what was,
But it was a dealership at the time.
yeah.
So you're saying they didn't buy the dealership?
No.
Okay, Matt.
Everyone okay? All right. So when we look at this,
Down the hall.
and I'll go through this again because I've had this I had.
I'll try and finish my question.
Sure.
If you can answer them all over at the same time. Then. Some of them were bought because they wanted the franchise that went with them.
None of them that I brought here show anything.
So all these franchises remained, didn't stay with that building.
If there was a separate purchase of the franchise, it doesn't show up in what we have.
Okay, so you're number one. You're not aware that you bought the franchise as well?
But that's not, there would be a separate transaction for that. It's not inclusive of the price.
Okay, but are you aware of any of the others that bought the franchises? Because some of them remain the franchises.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but my point is when we're isolating what the actual realty value is, that's what we're isolating. If there was an additional private transaction of a business, that wouldn't show up in our realty
But if a
value.
person is selling it because they're getting out of the business for different reasons, whatever they are,
Yeah.
and they say, you have to take my land, is there not a little bit of pressure on the person? You have to buy my land if you want the dealership?
If you're saying there's undue stress or
Yes.
undue motivation,
Yeah,
or
undue motivation.
I can't comment on that. I'm not a party of the purchaser of the business element of it. That's a question I can't answer.
Okay. I'll leave it open. You're right.
I'd like to point out, though, when we see the consideration paid and the sworn value matches, that's a good sale, especially when they consider that that they put down that there is no anything other than the realty. Now, I've had this at appeal before, where Mr. Diamond was on a panel, and I'm going to assist to his comments. These ownership groups do not want to pay any more than their fair share in taxes, hence they have a tax agent coming in and they're doing the realty appeal. If you're going to put in this value that, for instance, say, number 20 on page 24, that this $4 million and
Mr. Cole, we're doing questions right now, they're not a summary, so.
I'm trying to
Just
answer
in the
the
interest of
appellant.
time.
I'm answering his question, and not,
Not the appellant, you has me.
am I allowed to answer?
Yes, you are. I'm quick to hear your answer.
If they're not, if there is some business component related in that, they're paying land transfer tax on top of that. A prudent business owner wouldn't pay any more tax than they have to. Hence, the appeal of the realty. There would be a signed statement saying this was wrong, this, and there would be a rationale given, as I've asked at numerous appeals, for this information. I've yet to see a sworn document or affidavit or anything along the line that indicates we were wrong, this is what it is, and a breakdown. They're paying land tax, or land transfer taxes on their actual consideration sworn value. That's a good sale. Until we see otherwise, we shouldn't be questioning that.
Okay. I've got no further questions.
Okay, Mr. McIntyre?
Well, I'm going to start with sort of an interesting question. Were your submissions late?
They were a couple days late, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Hence it's marked on the top of our submission.
Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Story, there was no issue.
She's okay with this.
We agreed, we're fine.
You had said that 40,000 square feet was showroom. What part, where is the service garage?
I'd be on site on the other side.
It's at the back of the building.
So it's part of the building?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So it's part of
And
this-
they've linked, what they've done,
No,
they've expanded, and they've linked the, which now is drive-through service to go and get your appointment. You drive in, doors open up, you drive in, you drive out, and the service is done, it'll be west of that.
On the other property, which is different
Yeah,
road.
yeah. You can kind of look at it as one economic unit
Yeah.
here.
So there's a separate roll number for the garage?
Separate row number for the garage.
You can,
It's like one building on the...
It's one building, they linked it, it's got a drive-through now.
well, hold on a second, hold on a second. Go to my page.
I go to your page 10.
Yeah, it's all in the one.
It's all on one roll number.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
This is the square footage.
Do they not also operate here? Across
Pardon
the
me?
street? Do the business not also operate here?
No, what happened is they've got a very bad land to building ratio, so they had a collision center up right behind them on
Yeah.
Watson Street
Yeah.
that they also use for vehicle storage, and they also bought, they didn't want to have the collision center in the main building, so they bought the building across the street,
And that's where they
and
do
that's
their
a detail,
BHG.
it's not a collision center, it's a detailing, the clean car. Yeah, but it's a separate role, that one is.
Yeah, there's a
That's
separate role, but the
building.
business still
Across the
occupies
street.
over there. They're doing business on the other role.
Oh, sure,
Okay, so there you go.
but it's not, but they still have the full dealership. It's-
But part of this roll number, this building,
Is
has the
service.
garage.
Yeah, right.
So which square footage is it?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Here it is here. The total square footage is 63,994,
Okay, I don't think there's any disagreement on that.
and I'll just give you a
The
breakdown.
basement lease is what they were talking, the museum area.
The main floor is 40,640 square feet. The mezzanine is 12,158.
And I've got all those areas,
Oh,
but what portion of the 40,000 square feet is actually service garage? Not retail, not showroom?
about 20%. What they do is they have a formula, I'm going to present it in my rebuttal. They have a formula where on a typical new dealership, and we have one coming up next, 2400 McPhillips is the most current. What they do is they have 60% of the main floor area is showroom and sales offices, and that includes the business center. And 20%, if there isn't a drive-through for service area, because they're very sparsely done,
Can I,
they go 20 and 20. They split out that way.
when did they do this change around?
Which change?
This drive-through thing that you're talking about?
Were they linked that? About 3-4 years ago.
Right there, okay, all right.
Yeah,
I'll
you
hop
guys-
back and I'll check permits.
You guys have been out inspecting it. It's just, how they work, drive-through service. Because they had one at 2400, so they did the same thing with the older building.
And they did take out a permit for that?
Oh, sure, yeah, of course.
But
they are also operating on the off-site across the street.
No, they just
And
opened on,
I'm aware of that because I was on that appeal.
yeah, they just opened a big
I
one.
just thought most
a big
of
collision center on-
what they did is for
Temple.
vehicle servicing related gets shipped across the street.
Just so you know, just for clarification, the car dealerships years ago, when Mr. McNaught built, Mr. Murray built, and Mr. Gauthier, the big stores, they had collision centers in them as well. But they don't, they think it demeans the building when you drive up and a car crashed and somebody went through a windshield. So they're all moving. The big guys all have their own independent collision centers, off premise. They don't think it's appealing to the customer coming to buy a
Messy,
car.
it's loud,
It's dirty.
Dirty,
It can contaminate the site.
and you're trying to sell, not really service, you can service them.
Yeah, and then I know myself, I've gone to pick up one of my cars that I was in an accident. It makes me sick to see cars that have been in accidents and people have been hurt. And so the car dealerships are pulling away from that. You'll see it with Dan Murray's now in Penn with the collision center. Birchwood have a collision center out there in town. Mr. Gauthier has a collision center.
I still want to know,
Yeah,
I really don't care on what
Yeah.
the other dealerships have.
yeah.
How much of the 40,000 square feet is service garage?
We are, service with drive-through is 8,128 square feet. That's our 20% allocation.
And my last question of the assessor is,
Oh, sorry, what was the area?
8,128.
8128.
8,128.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how to phrase this.
Sounds like a good one. Good feeling.
Aren't there similar, unrelated to the operations of an auto dealer, where you have the front office area or front retail area, and in the back you have warehouse or processing or repairing machinery?
Meaning, should this be treated as an industrial building versus a real?
Exactly.
Problem with that is they're all in industrial parks buried somewhere. They're not on frontages of retail locations. You wouldn't get the retail rents that you would get. And if you would change the parameters around to match industrial, how do you account for the retail locations that these properties are in? We're trying to do the most similar.
Okay, I'm thinking of a building in Transcona, Winnipeg, which we've all seen the ads on TV, where the front part of it is showroom, and the back part of it is
All industrial.
industrial, yeah,
Flex warehouse.
flex warehouse. Yeah.
That's what they should.
Just my question.
We're taking it from the perspective that you have a high volume of people coming up to the site, and if you took what's there and you put it in the back of an industrial area, it wouldn't exist. So we're taking retail nodes, retail power centers, taking that rental information, transporting them back to this. We're not doing the industrial argument because it doesn't really fit.
Okay.
Find out where the parts department is.
Pardon me?
Find out where the parts department is. And how many square feet
It's
is it?
somewhere in that building.
Parts department is 81 as well. It's 20% of the main floor.
Another
space.
21.
Yeah.
Another 81.
It's like a template of dealerships.
How much value was the, can you let me know, do you know, how much value was the permit that was done a few years ago? Is it small or is it?
Well, you must have, I don't know.
I
It was reassessed, probably was reassessed.
I have no
as a
further
site.
questions.
Okay, thank you, and I have no questions. So perhaps we'll take a short break and then start your evidence.
Sure.
Right?
And mine will be fast and we'll carry.
I hope so.
There is no such thing as fast food.
We have Christmas lunch, I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, I'll call this meeting back to order. Mr. Story, please proceed with your evidence.
Thank you very much. We'll go very quickly. We have a statement of issues, very straightforward. We disagree with the assessment department with respect to the market rent used, and Mr. Poe has explained the difficulties in arriving at a reasonable market rent for a dealership. And our second point of statement of issue is has with capitalization rate. What is the appropriate capitalization rate for a built-to-suit property that is very much related to the manufacturers that are affixed to them through their dealership and distribution lines? So to start with, I'm going to pass something out there. Well, we'll go through the brief quickly and then I'll go through that. We're not that far apart, are Mr. Paul and myself. I've done this for a lot of years. The assessor is suggesting $11.96 and we're suggesting $11.50. We're suggesting a 5% vacancy allowance. The city is suggesting 2%. We're asking for a capitalization rate of 8%. And I believe the assessment department is 7.3%. So we're not far apart. But I do want to try and just go through.
But you did put 5% for management in there.
Pardon me?
You put the 5% for
Yes.
management,
Yes.
which you didn't talk about.
Yes, we like the management. That's in our owner's position. The costs. I'll just pass this out if I may. This is a bit of a rebuttal. For the most part, I think that Mr. Paul is going along an interesting path, and he may have maybe one of the branches he took is not appropriate, and that's the big box idea. The fact is that they should not be compared to big box retail, and even the big box retail that were presented are not big box retail. So what we've done is we've simply taken the.
I'm confused. What is this? This rebutting?
This is, yes, we're rebutting the.
How is it rebuttal to my argument?
Well, you presented this and I'm breaking it down further. If you go to the back page of that, you'll see that what we're suggesting is that the way to do this is to recognize that there are different qualities of space in an auto dealership. And a collision space is less quality of finish than the front end, the showroom and sales area. Offices and mezzanines have different qualities. So what we're suggesting is that 60% of the main floor space, 24,000 square feet, be at $13.50, which is not inappropriate given the big box rate at $14 median, or even $16 that Mr. Paul is suggesting. Given that where they are, they're all shadow anchored by Polo Park Shopping Center. So we believe that $13.15 is reasonable. The service and the parts, we've used a flex rate that we used in Keniston at $13.01 Keniston at $10 a square foot. We think that's reasonable. And then the mezzanine, we're taking the mezzanine, Mr. Buss was here a moment ago, he and I, many years ago, did a municipal board order on it, not Motors, where the municipal board assigned a lesser rate to the mezzanine. And we've been using it in our analysis almost 20 years at a 50% rate, but I think that's changing because mezzanines are becoming much more professional, much higher quality finish than they used to be. When McNaughts did his, it was his private office, a training center, his staff locker rooms. Now they're almost equivalent to offices. So we used a mezzanine rate of $12 a square foot, which would be the range that we're using for suburban Class B office space. And the basement, this is a unique situation because this basement has a high quality finish. You'll see it by Mr. Poe's photographs, because it was a car museum and it wasn't part of the business in terms of there's a draw, get people in the building, they see the other cars. That's not there anymore. They're now using that space as private, the business offices where you want to apply for financing. So we've assigned a rate of 10 to that. So we're suggesting that a more realistic rate would have been $10.95. We're staying with our $11.50 a square foot. We honestly believe that the right way to do this is on the cost basis. On a cost basis, you see that a dealership like the new Mercedes would have a quality rating in the showrooms of probably 2.5 times what the parts department is stored. So what we're suggesting by this is almost an abbreviated cost system. I think would be more appropriate and get you to a more equitable and fair value on these things, and not force the owners to have to appeal every tax every year. Rather have some predictability. With respect to cap rate, again, taking the same argument forward, we're suggesting a flex space cap rate, and they're ranging, and their flex is industrial, and we have some examples which I'll pass out at 6.94 to 8.7%. I don't think we're far apart on the cap rate analysis, because Mr. Poe indicated that last year was half a point higher if you weren't in an auto mall. This isn't in an auto mall. We're on the 8%, I think, is a reduction certainly over 2016 when they're usually about 8.5%, and last year I think for the most part they're 8%. So we're asking for an 8% cap rate, again supported by cap rate study of flex warehouses, and they're in at on average at 8.87% in our analysis. I'll pass on. And so that's the approach. 1150 is the number. What had happened prior to 2016, or up until 2016, prior to 2018, is the dealerships, and I think Mr. Poe will agree, had a rate of 1150 if they were over 25,000 square feet. They had a rate of $12 if they were under 25,000 square feet. We had some anomalies. The McNaught and Mr. Gauthier, where there's 60,000 square feet, or sometimes the market rates were in the $10 range. Mr. Buss and I indicated we did a municipal board where we got a discounted rate on the mezzanine, and the reason being that when you build a mezzanine, you devalue your space under it. All of a sudden, your high ceiling goes to a lower ceiling because you build a mezzanine. The city's suggesting that a mezzanine could be at a higher rate than the finished showroom seems inappropriate to me. The mezzanines aren't generally open to the public. They're offices, executive offices, accounting offices. So I think we've been through all this stuff time and time again, and I think that the 1150 is reasonable, and I would like to see the city entertain the possibility of doing a cost basis on these dealerships to ease some of the confusion. But if one were to take the Marshall Swift and apply it today, you would be putting different qualities of finish in each department. You'd isolate the departments to sections of the building, and I think it's appropriate to do this. Doing a blanket doesn't seem appropriate to me. If you get a chance to go visit the Mercedes dealership, you walk in, there's a cappuccino bar, you sit down on leather furniture, it's gorgeous, there's videos and everything, there are TVs going. It's a gorgeous facility, as are the Mr. Gauthier and Mr. Delarius, are all beautiful places. High degree of finish and very much more expensive than a place that would be handing parts out through a window or storing tires for the winter, for the summer. So I respectfully submit that the board consider a cap rate of 8%. I have some stuff, I have our lease comps on flex warehouses, which We have flex warehouses that are anywhere, again, at 1301 Keniston, which range from 39,000 square feet at 846. I'm saying it's $10 a square foot.
What page are you referring to there?
I've got, this is a handout.
So that's new evidence.
No,
New evidence.
it's a flex rate, so you can see. And I'm suggesting that $10 is not inappropriate for a flex warehouse, newer construction. And I've got evidence if you'd like to see. And I think that that's, pretty much what we'd like. It'd be like 1150 market rent, based on the different sections and quality of finish, and an 8% cap rate, and the assessment of $7,907,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Poole, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. This document here, I don't believe it's providing my information. This document here seems to be new evidence as well.
Which one?
The document you just handed out. Can you please tell me?
It's rebutting your rates by...
Yes, I know.
It's rebutting the model.
Can I please?
Yeah.
It seems like you're comparing assessments to assessments and not going straight from source rental rates.
No, you provided a model.
And you're using an assessment to compare and derive another assessment from.
No, we're not. We're just using the square footage. Same square footage you have.
So how are you coming up with your deviation of rental rates then? Are you not using this document and the base rent that's put on it, which is a model rent, which is an assessment, and you're now using it as market evidence, which is not market evidence?
No. We're looking at the various components of the building. This clarifies that you agree that there's mezzanine and basement space, and we're putting what we think are market rents to that space.
But you're not providing any evidence of any market rent. There is no evidence of market rents in your brief. The only evidence of rent that you have is our model rents.
Yes,
which is an assessment compared to another assessment.
Your model. No, we're not. We're looking at market rent. Whatever you assess to that, we're looking at market rent. We believe the market rent is the flex warehouse, which we believe this should be, and you can determine it, or you can make that determination that there is a different quality by looking at any Marshall Swift, any costing system that has different qualities. And you may get a quality 5 versus a quality 2.
I can get back to my line of questioning.
Yeah.
Do you have any capitalization rate information?
Yes.
Direct evidence in your brief that was submitted.
No, I don't believe we do.
Do you have any market rent information that was submitted in your brief?
No.
You have a change of vacancy shortfall from where we have at $6 you reported, and you have $5.50. Can you explain how you derive that breakdown away from our model rate to your actual, when it's not reported on your INE? No. You don't have any information to change that?
5% we think is reasonable for retail. If you're treating it as big box retail is reported to be 6% overall vacancy, so you think...
We're talking about the shortfall rate that you're using. You're using $5.50. That shortfall would be derived from the cost?
Yeah, we usually shortfall from the model, but I think she made a mistake on the rate.
And I think we have went over the 5% non-recoverable argument numerous times, where each panel member probably knows everything that we could possibly talk about for the next 2 hours.
I probably know it better than both of you.
So what you're saying is you feel that our retail analysis and taking retail information and transposing it to this subject property shouldn't be done. It should.
No, I didn't say that. I said you're on the right track.
It should be done on. No, it should be done on industrial side.
Flex warehouses, yeah. These are flex warehouses. They're not enormous spaces. They're 10,000 square feet.
And yet there's ample evidence for industrial capitalization rates, industrial rent rates, industrial parameters that you could have brought in and didn't.
Well, I think industrial, if you're going to go away from, there is no dealerships. That's why you use retail.
No, but you could have brought in industrial evidence, and you don't have any industrial evidence.
Correct, because we do.
So, getting back to your other comment on cost analysis, are you seeing that this property develops and has, that these type of properties have a specialty use and therefore cost?
They're single-purpose buildings. You can't
do they develop a cost analysis is appropriate to use when it's a single utility
special utility use.
Yes, I think it's the only one to use. That's
So
why
are you
use it.
saying that, based on that, should you have not brought in a cost analysis and disregarded the income approaches?
Well, I have a cost, but that's not what, this board has not been following that. I have a cost analysis on all our buildings. We do a motion survey. I have a cost analysis. And I believe that's the only system that should be used. If you're following your system, as long as you correct it and use the rates that are appropriate for flex warehouses, then it makes some sense. But it doesn't make sense to use big box stores. The reason they're called big box is because you can store lots of things. That's why they're square, they're boxes. And they survive because they do massive volume. And because they do massive volume, they can convey prices. The three most notable, the appraisal institute tells us, are Walmart, IKEA, and Home Depot. Well, there's nothing that compares to these car dealerships in any of those big box. And when you look at those 10,000 and less square feet that are in your third 27, they're not relevant. Unless you flex warehouses, then they're relevant, but then the rates are a little bit higher.
Okay, let's start there for a second. How many dealerships are 42,000 square feet or above? Most of them, smaller dealerships that are less volume, are still between 11 and 17,000 square feet.
Yeah, but you're using parameters of a big box, but they're not big boxes. They're not enormous square footage, and they're adjacent to Polo Park, for God's sake.
So
When you just asked the question, how many are higher? I can tell you. McNaught is 55,000. You asked if they're higher than what amount? 40,000. We've got them all. The big ones are McNaught, Dan Murray, and McNaught.
I'll address the rest of the rebuttal, or in summary.
Thank you. Mr. Lorenda?
No questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
No questions.
I have no questions.
Information.
Summary?
Then I'll start with the appellant. The appellant has submitted no market information about derived approach. The appellant stating it should be industrial warehouse related rather than retail. Neither approaches has any rental information or market transaction information from that. The appellant indicated it was a specialty use property, which would indicate you should be using the cost. It has not done the cost approach. I don't see anything in the evaluation summary that warrants a reduction in value, indicating that they haven't provided any evidence of that. So, with that said, I think our value should be maintained. It's the best information we have that we can follow the existing order that's in place. We use retail information and transpose it onto the subject property. That retail information, rental rates come from the bare bones basic structure of a property. That retail information would need to be transposed back onto the subject property, because if they were to go outside of their owner-occupied position or spot or subject property, they would need to acquire a building that's at least the utility that they're in, which would be a better state of a property, a better finish, better utility than what currently big box stores offer. If they're just basically empty, like you said, empty shells, but in bare bones, the rate of return on those translates back to an $18 rent. We're giving rents that are far below market. We think we've made an adjustment, putting it below end of the range, and our value should be maintained at $9,960,000 baseline.
Thank you very much.
Well, you talk about following orders, and there was a board order that suggested that mezzanine rate should be at a half rate relative to the main floor. Myself and Mr. Buss did that hearing, and you've got a mezzanine at a higher rate than the showroom, and that doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. So that's number one. So you're not following these orders as you indicate you are. The other thing you're missing, and I've gone through it for many years, and it doesn't land anywhere, but I go through it, is car dealerships are very inefficient to operate. McNaughts, when they first moved in 2003, and I had the pleasure of doing it, realized that 18 overhead doors in the new facility. There's 18 overhead doors. And his utility costs, first month, which was January of 2003, exceeded his previous year in the other location. Because even going in to drop your car off, you go into a heated area. The door opens, you drive in, you say what you need, the door opens again, you leave. So they're inefficient. So you can't compare them. And that's part of the reason that there's no after-use for them. Think about Birchwood Motors, a very successful Birchwood Motors on Moraine Portage. When they gave up their space to move to the auto park, because they wanted to be in an auto park because there's less risk, because you're sharing advertising, they sat vacant for years. Finally, they put Mercedes in there on an interim basis. Mercedes pulled out of there. Now it's sitting vacant again. That was a very successful auto dealership, an auto group, Birchwood Auto Group. Our Mr. Stenning, who used to be on this board, had a very successful Ford dealership. It's now King Sportswear. You don't close an auto dealer and become another auto dealer. It doesn't happen because the building is part of the image. That's why they build them the way they do. Mr. Gautier's building that was built in 1990 was called Image 2000, and that was to make it more like a Jetson facility, make it soft and easy for the women, and had all these different motives. And that's how GM allowed you to keep your dealership. You have to build things like that. So there's no aftermarket. You can't take a Gautier GM store and open a Mercedes in there. It's not available to you. And that's why there are no market rents, because nobody will have long-term leases. They're all family-owned or trusts. And there's no cap rate because there's no sales, because nobody wants a single-purpose building, and you're at the whim of the manufacturer, not your dealer. You may have the greatest dealer in the world. We're lucky in Winnipeg. We've got wonderful people at the head of these car dealerships. But that doesn't mean that GM or Ford or any of these other manufacturers may make unreasonable demands that will affect their property. So nobody will buy them. Nobody will develop them for a car dealer. And that's why you have no sales. So all I'm suggesting is that I wish we were able to have the time, the department, to analyze this thing and go on a cost basis, if only to determine that there's different classifications. That Mercedes building on Keniston has a Class 5 rating, so it's the top finish, the top quality for the showroom, and it's only a 2.5 for the service bays and the interior showroom and things of that nature. So there's an acknowledged difference in quality and cost. So you can't take and say that Ashley Furniture, which is a beautiful building, is just a bare bones shell, and it's not. It's also at Polo Park. It's illogical that it would be considered as a competitor. It's retail. Figure out where it fits in your cap rate study. The last information we got, the city on retail had only one property that was a bona fide retail, and that was in the Maples, or on Jefferson, 2190 Jefferson, or 1290 Jefferson. Cap rate was 7.44% for retail on a neighborhood shopping center. So how can a built-to-suit car dealership be anything less than that? They can't. It's impossible. So you've got all the tools. Hopefully we'll get it straightened out so that we don't all have to go and appeal every property every year. In 2016, we almost...
Sorry, we're not presenting new evidence, just a summary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I've said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I make a request to do 2610 McPhillips? It has another non-compliance matter that is a little different than the other ones.
Sure, 2610 McPhillips.
Hey, we really don't want to get out of here.
Well, I have no idea you're going to 1 o'clock too, but you know what? I'm scheduled in the hearing at 1 o'clock too. So. It's not bad. Not as good. So.
Just a minute.
Give me 1 second to...
Change our schedule. Okay.
We're going backwards.
You all there?
Is this part of your package?
Yeah,
Okay.
please keep that off to the side, because I don't think that should be submitted as evidence. I'll just generally speak to it, and this is updated to it as we go along.
Pardon me, what was
It's a
that?
separated document that I discussed with you earlier.
Oh, your document, yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
yeah.
file number is 194666. Roll number is 050093555600. Address is 2610 Phillips. The roll for the 2020 year is $7,204,000. And again, we're requesting non-compliant supply, section 53.3B, and if there's a reduction, section 54.3.2. If you turn to my page,
I think you guys got to buy a new photocopy.
Just want to make us nauseous.
I feel like I'm drinking.
Analyze them, Madam Chair.
you look at this document here, this is what they submitted for their INE. They did not submit.
Is that the
don't have
blue one
that.
that you told us?
Yes,
you-
I gave it to you. It's on a separate clip.
Mm-hmm.
You did it today?
The reason why I separated it out is because as you see here, this is not the INE that was returned. They returned prior year's INE, our hard copy file. This is their business financials. I don't believe that they would want this submitted in a tribunal open for anyone to look at. This is what they sell, their cost and everything. So they clearly do not return their INE. They got it, they return this. You can look at mine if you like. But there was a copy. The reason why I don't want that,
Did you give me that today?
the reason why I don't want that submitted is because clearly this shouldn't be open to public eyes. I'm doing a courtesy. I'm pretty sure there's an office manager somewhere that's going to get a talking to that this probably shouldn't be going out to what we asked for. They are non-compliant. They did not return. They did not fill out their INE, and this is what we got. I'll let you make your decision. You've already heard the other argument. This one's pretty cut and dry, in my opinion. We asked for information related to the property, and they just their business financials.
And where are your,
Okay, is there,
No?
okay, so, okay.
and is,
Do you have questions?
yeah, was a second letter sent out, or there's a request with the signature?
This is what we got. They made a response. They gave a response. It just wasn't anything on it.
So no attempt was made to, this is a major property
I know they-
in the city, and no
when it
attempt
comes
was
in,
made
we
to
get
tell
the
them that they had provided too much information, but not the right information?
They provided their business financial statement.
But isn't that part of the confusion for the property
No,
owner? How do they
yeah.
fill these damn things out? So there's no second letter?
No, we didn't send a second, but we got a response. The letter went there. It triggered the response.
Okay, so
Clearly
then
went there.
when
They
did you
returned-
determine that this, and I, to be honest with you, I can't even read this thing. But when did you realize that them sending you all this information didn't allow you to do your job? Is this something, like, why wasn't a second request or pick up a phone? They'll do whatever you want. They're just trying to
We
figure
went
out how
over
to
this,
work
went
this.
over Richardson and Boyne Lock. As long as there's a response, we don't send out a secondary notice.
But
The
if
property
responded,
owner
they sent you a
clearly
blank-
responded, is that they sent in a business financial statement rather than, the owner occupied, rather than the INE that we requested.
If they sent you a blank IME, would you send them the second letter?
If we got a response that was blank, no.
No, you wouldn't? You'd say that's your,
They did-
complied?
No.
And
When I
that's
review
fine.
that appeal, obviously, they
Yeah.
would send a blank, I'd ask for noncompliance. But once we receive a response, that's their response. This is their response, their business or their business financial statement.
Okay.
So I have nothing more to say to that. I'll leave it at the
Okay.
discretion of the panel.
Do you have any further questions?
No, I'm
Okay.
fine.
Mr. Lorenzo? Do you have any questions?
I would if it was on a different printer, but I can't help read.
I can't,
Do you have a magnifying glass?
I can't scale that up. That's the scale of what they put it in.
Yeah, but it's the quality of the copy, I think.
Well, it clearly speaks to what it speaks to, and it's not related to the realty aspect of it.
I guess I will ask you a question. Is the information that would be on that sheet, would it not come from this?
No,
None of it?
no. This is what their volume of sales, what they, everything.
But it has expenses on here as well?
You see what I see. I don't see anything that's broken out what we will ask for. I can't make anything out from here other than, if you look through it, this is like a detailed finance of their entire business.
It's got everything you'd want.
But it's the
all
business
expenses.
operation. We don't value that. We value the realty. So, I mean,
But
this
you
is
asked
pretty
me
Mr.
cut and
Story,
dry.
you'll get a chance to.
This is pretty cut and dry to me. Like, I mean,
Okay.
I'll leave it up to the panel.
I'll leave it up to
I need my copy back.
I'll take another look at
Okay,
it.
Mr. McIntyre, do you have any questions for Mr. Polk?
Maybe you've got better eyes than I do.
No.
I-
It's
I-
all blur, real.
And my point is, it's not the printer that, I know the printer is not the greatest, when I printed the briefs. That's the size of the image I had to work with. They give a PDF of that. If you were working on a PDF, you could blow it up, the source program, but they give a PDF image of a smaller, like, there's nothing we can discern from that.
So it was received by the department on May 3rd, 2018, right, according to the date stamp on there.
Correct.
Wouldn't somebody triage this and say, hold it, this is the wrong form?
Once we get a response, that's their submission. We don't get a response. There's been no response. We don't go through the IDs and say, you know, you missed this, you missed that, or in this case here, you didn't do anything that we requested. So,
Okay, that was my question.
Thank you, my questions are
Found out how to read it.
asked.
May I have one quick question?
Well, yes, you may go ahead now.
Mr. Paul, do you know offhand, they have a number of dealerships. Is that the same quality?
so that's fine. You got it there. You know.
Is that the same quality that you found with the other Delory properties? Or just this one? They have a number of dealerships.
Yeah.
Did they?
I've never seen a business financial statement,
So this is the only one that you got all that
including
information?
on this subject property. When I look back through the years, they did not do that.
Property taxes are there. Building insurance is there.
It's all there, that's all there.
Maintenance is there.
You're giving evidence.
I'm
Do
not
you have
giving
any
it's on
further
here.
questions?
No, I'm finished, I'm sorry.
Did you want to say anything about?
No, it's they have essentially complied. If you're looking for the expenses, they're all there. I can sort of see that they're not well.
It's related to the.
But it's a 12, these are completely carefree leases, they're financial leases, they pay everything, and they're there, they're provided the information. And there's no second letters, they don't know they haven't complied, they'll do the same thing again if you don't tell them. Must have a draconian penalty for it.
I've heard that word before from a different. Leave it at that.
From somebody else there.
Should we be leaving the room?
Sorry, I was just checking something. Yes, we'll take a brief recess then to discuss this matter.
Oh, if you turn the heater on, you can have light.
There's too many, yeah. Sometimes
We'll be in the dark, but we're.
I hope that's reflected in the
Are we
respective
always
assessment
there?
for this project.
Okay, I'm calling this meeting back to order, everybody. Put your coats on if you're cold. Okay, we have reviewed the evidence and discussed the matter of the application for non-cooperation pursuant to Section 53(3)B of the Municipal Assessment Act, and we are denying the request for non-cooperation. Mr. Polk, please proceed with your evidence.
as we've kind of already highlighted the argument in full, we'll go through these fairly quick. I don't think we need to rehash the exact argument that we just did for the prior appeal as they relate to all the rest of them. So, property was built in 2010. It is a 38,616 square foot building. Comparables are on, comparables on page 3, we've already discussed them. They have an average of $18.86, weighted average of 18.5, and a median of 18.29. The supporting auto comps are there as well. We have a land sale component as well on this one. As you can see from the land sales, they are ranging from approaching the reference date between $26 and $16 a square foot. Their comparables are there. There's some excess land on the site. We look at the vehicle dealership component. It's 38,000 square feet, approximately. $16.33 a square foot we put it on for rent. Produces a potential rent of $514,751. With our standard parameters applied, gives us a 2% vacancy gives us effective gross income of $504,456. Expenses at 2%, shortfall of $6 gives us a net operating income of $489,733. Capped at 7.15%. Gives us a rounded or capitalized value of $6,849,413. We have some excess land on the site, 23,000 square feet at $14.92. So as I compared to the comparables before, fits below all the range that we presented at $355,000 for the additional value. Gives us our $7.2 million. So on page 12 is the photos of the subject property. As you can see, there is excess land. It's the Honda dealership, Honda Phillips. In lieu of going through everything, from page 14 backwards, we see that there's the same improved sale comparables, all the same information we already overwent, and the same issues with the one standalone municipal order on car dealerships. So we don't need to cover that information. So with that, our assessment at $7,204,000 is reasonable. The rent rate is below, a little bit below where the market is indicated for our argument. We've already hashed that out already. The one difference here is that there's a bit of excess land on the property, and the rent and the sale rate that we put on, the square foot rate that we put on, is below the range that we brought into the areas. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story?
No, thank you.
No questions? Oh, sorry, I wasn't expecting that answer. Okay. Mr. Lorenzo?
What are you, the other lands that you use as comparables, what type of land are they? What are they zoned as?
They're all there. DCOM, zone C3, C2.
C3, C2.
So
And
typical.
are any of them being farmed at this time?
Farm, like as far as the comparables, no. And I don't believe this subject is either, which is behind the, if I'm not mistaken, that's where, yeah, it's going to be going through. So,
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you can see it on the map, but I mean, I don't know when it's going to go through.
That's on the side there.
Yeah. There'll be some effects, some good frontage on that site.
Well, you won't want frontage on Vegas, you got no access. There'll be no
No,
access.
no, what I mean, there'll be a side street off that, there's not going to be a,
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation. Here, here's Mr. Story's presentation. I'll share with
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. This is an interesting property. This was built as a Honda power center, not a car dealership. It had both. It had cars plus all the power equipment. Power equipment concept didn't work out, and as a result, we have a property that has 38,000 square feet, 1,600 of it is mezzanine. We're suggesting, if we talked before, an 8% cap rate. This again is not in an auto mall. Starting to cluster around it, but it's not an auto mall. Cap rate, I believe, last year was 8%, or 8.5% even. And we're suggesting again a market rent of $11.50 on the main dealership and $10 on the small mezzanine. An overall assessment of $4,207,583. And I have a bit of a problem here. And again, it's taking the same methodology. And this particular property doesn't have basement or anything abnormal. Very small mezzanine. It has some areas in here for storage only. And all we're suggesting is if you look at the last page of this, again, just another approach. We're saying $13.50 is a big box retail rate. When you take it away from Polo Park, it's a bit of Polo Park at $16, but $13 is reasonable. Flex warehouse, $10. That's the amount that's been used by the city. I represented the tenant on some new big box retail space, flex retail, I should say, not big box, flex retail, flex warehouse. And Class B suburban office, 12 for the mezzanine, and we come to a blended payment of $10.95. And this is just to prove that the $11.50 is reasonable. And that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. Do you have questions from?
Similar to the last deal, do you have any evidence, marketplace evidence?
No.
Do you have any costing evidence?
No. Costing. Did you say you have costing anything?
Yeah, you indicated it should be done.
Yeah, we do costing on everything, but our costing is post-reference.
So you have no evidence of any kind to support your opinion of value?
No, just a breakdown of the different qualities of space.
All the questions I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lorenzo.
Nothing.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Nor do I, so we will move on. May I ask which property you guys want to do next?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
8 cap, 11.50 market. Pick a property.
Anyone you choose.
So should we just go back to number 1 then?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll do 1272 Eagle Road.
I just want to say, Chairman.
I'm going to get back to you.
Maybe that's not it.
This is for Region, so I'm leaving that there, and this goes here.
1272 Eagle, that's what we do.
1272 Duval.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Mr. Pohl, please proceed.
Okay. File number is 194147. Roll number is 0609315860. Specific address is 1272 Gold Road. The 2020 assessment is for $3,624,000. Actual year built is 1997-2000. We have an effective age of approximately 2000. Leasable area is approximately 25,859. we just look at the section of property, which is on page 9. Main store, the main dealership is the front building. There's a storage warehouse at the back. On page 10 is a little bit of a blow-up of the property, including a frontage elevation on the next 2 pages. So they're a sports recreational dealership. On page 12 is a further couple pictures of the property. Yamaha Honda dealership, quad boats, outboards, things of that nature. Look how happy he is, page 15. I was just that happy when I got mine.
These are great pictures, by the way.
So
It'd be a website.
they are from the website. As you can see, they're retail orientated, they're vehicle, recreational vehicle related, sales, service. I believe they have storage, but that is not on the roll. It's on a separate roll, so we don't have to worry about, sorry, my mistake, we do have storage on the roll, but I believe it's shared storage. So we're just dealing with income stream. I'll go over that now. Same idea for the comparables on page 3, we just discussed. Page 4 is the workup. For the storage warehouse, we have 5,838 square feet at $3.79. Vacancy at 2.5% gives us, I should say, potential rent of 22,126. 2.5% vacancy gives us 21,573 for effective gross income. Expenses at 2%, shortfall at $3.75. As it is a previous cold storage is not heated. We have a net operating income of $20,595. Capped at 5.5%, gives us $374,000. I don't have any rental rates that low for $3.79. That's just a model parameter. The rents that I indicated were around $5 and up, so I didn't bring any comparables in for this particular segment of it. It is a nominal amount compared to the primary value of the property, so I don't think this would be in contention. Page 5, the main portion of the value. 20,000 square feet at $12.21 a square foot produces a potential rent of $244,456. Vacancy at 2% gives us our effective gross income at $239,567. Expenses at 2%, shortfall at $6 gives us net operating income of $232,373. Capped at 7.15%. Is estimated value rounded at $3,250,000. So on page 6 is a summary of the 2 approaches for the $3,624,000. One second here. Their IE is at the back on page 63. As you can see, they check off owner occupied. They fill out all the costs related that we were seeking. They have it there. It is appropriate to ask, and they can't fill it out. And with that said, I think value of $3,624,000 is appropriate for the property. And with that, I have no questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story.
Yes, thank you. Did you get a chance to visit the site?
I bought my quad there.
You?
I bought my quad there.
Okay.
I get it serviced there.
Are you aware of the storage warehouse at the back is a storage warehouse? It's for boats and whatnot. Is it heated?
I don't believe it's heated.
It's not heated, okay. So the $12 amount is a blended payment in your mind? Like what, it's a model driven, but it's blended?
Yeah, but we have a separate rate for the storage warehouse.
Right, $379.
Yeah.
But when you get to the...
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted the...
When you
They're
get
not
to the-
combined in the areas, they're separated out. So yeah, it's $12.21 for the...
It's a blended payment.
For the principal building.
Okay. It's awfully high because it includes the 378, correct?
No.
Oh, it doesn't
Separate.
include, okay.
As I pointed out, I really can't bring you in a $3 rent.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lorendo.
None.
Mr. McIntyre?
No, I have none.
Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, ditto to everything we've said to date.
Okay.
And I'm asking for $11.50 as a blended payment. We have a similar calculation again. Just 1 second. Yeah, so we asked to pass this out, and this is supported the $11.50. It comes up somewhat less. Again, using those flex warehouse rates, and there's no mezzanine here, although there is in fact a mezzanine in the building, you can see from the photographs, but the city doesn't differentiate. We'll recognize the mezzanine.
Okay.
And that would be my presentation, not much, but it would be, we're suggesting a $11.50 overall rate, blended between everything, and capitalized 8%. Again, this is not in an auto mall, so it would require a slightly higher cap rate than if it were in a mall. It's also not an auto dealer, it's a motorsports dealer. So it's a little different than an automotive dealer in terms of what the requirements are, and their manufacturers don't tell them they have to build with marble floors and whatnot. They, in some cases, they can be very sports related. So they're a little different quality of finish. So we're accepting the $11.50, 8% cap, $3,195,281. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Do you have questions for Mr. Story?
Yeah, similar to the other submissions, you have no marketplace evidence or cost evidence. You spoke to risk as cap as far as manufacturers not controlling.
There's less control from.
What would you put towards cap risk? Essentially, cap rate is risk when you see three other independent
Well, this is
side by side in that location. Would that location be risky, or would it be less risk?
Well, it's less risky because there's other people there are in our worlds there right next to the So it'd be less risky than if they were standalone, I would presume. But it's still a single purpose. Well, it's not really single purpose.
But you see three other exact similar recreational dealerships lined up next to
Well,
us.
there's a boat dealer. And
So
these
risk
are-
at this location, given that there is actually four dealerships competing at each other.
Yeah, but they're not
This
a
little
conduit
strip.
corp. They don't share advertising.
No, but
That's
my
my
point is the
knowledge.
risk there would not be elevated, given the fact that there's four competing there.
I don't know.
Meaning there's not one standalone dealer, three are vacant.
Yeah, it's better because there's other people there. of
And they've
course.
been there for quite some time, as far back as I was a kid.
I think so. I think they were Yamaha at one time.
5, 6 years.
Yeah.
I was 2008 when I bought that.
Thank you. Mr.
That's all.
Lemon, any questions? Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Okay, nor do I, so we will move on.
You have three more.
Two.
Two more.
What do they have?
No, we have one more.
Two more.
Two more. We have 1375 Regent and 2400 McPhillips.
Ha, I found another copy that I lost.
Oh,
I
hey!
had two copies. That makes sense. I brought 4 copies in, it was all panic. It was like, what are you doing? It happens.
Well, I
We're
think the
dealing with
next one we'll
1375.
do is 1375 Regent Avenue West. I'm just trying to mess with you. Is it working?
So, file number 19.
One sec, Chairman.
Sorry.
Mr. Story, I'm following the docket now. You
I
should-
know, but
You think that makes sense?
there was logic in my request earlier, but we're okay.
There's no surprises now, it's all in front of you.
Okay. 13, I know 1395 has an error in it.
No, it's 1375 Regent.
1375.
Because I'm an Arab, you're kidding.
Was it high or low?
I can't remember.
You'd be asking things.
Nobody else.
I know.
When was this? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just getting there.
Want my copy?
Come on, my chicken's getting cold.
I'm coming.
I'm kidding, obviously, it would take.
1375, okay. Shoot.
Okay, so similar to the nature of the other deals, I'll go through file number 194675. Roll number is 0901040130. Address is 1375 Regent Avenue. 2020 assessment is for $5,635,000. The same non-compliance and deferral penalty is requested. If you go to page 53, the exact situation as we've already indicated on the I&E. They did not report any of the expense-related utility maintenance costs. They are owner-occupied, so it is a book rent. They're asking, given that they are owner-occupied, and that is confirmed with the searches in behind, that they do have possession and control of the information that they're seeking, being the cost-related information. They did not report it. That is a failure of inadequacy. And with that, we're asking for the non-compliance.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Fuller?
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Lorendo?
No questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
No questions.
Nor do I. Mr. Story, do you have anything you would like to add regarding this issue before we adjourn to make our
We're talking
decision?
about non-compliance.
The non-compliance, yes.
Same situation, same arguments as the last non-compliance, same circumstance. The material's there, there's no follow-up, no request, and therefore I don't think it should be granted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will adjourn to review the evidence and make our decision. Thank you. All right, we have reviewed the evidence and we are denying the application for non-cooperation pursuant to section 53(3)(b) of the Municipal Assessment Act. Mr. Cole, please proceed with your presentation.
File number is 194675. Roll number is 0901040130. Civic address is 1375 Regent Avenue West. The 2020 assessment is for $5,635,000. The original building was built in 1984 with an addition in 2015. We have an effective year of 2010. Leasehold area is 31,325. Same argument that we're going to be hearing as the other properties. If we go to page number 8. It's on the corner of Owen and Regent, just kitty corner to Regent Avenue there, in the Regent Strip, kitty corner to the casino. On page 9 shows other photos, and page 10 shows other photos as well. Coaches, ample site storage. Again, same rental information. Average, weighted, and median in around $18 a square foot. On page 4 is the workup. For 31,225 square feet, we have $15.56 a square foot. We have $423,411 for potential rent. For the standard parameters that apply, we have 2% for vacancy, which gives us an effective gross income of $414,943. Expenses at 2%, shortfall at $6 a square foot. That gives us a net operating income of $420,897. We have an overall capitalization rate of 7.15%, which gives us rounded at $5,635,000. Again, the same supporting documents that we have as far as sales and square foot rates, five-foot sales, as well as the standing order that we have. Any other? I'm opening to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Do you have questions for Mr. Cole?
No, I will quickly. Did you get an opportunity to inspect this site?
No.
You're aware that this was, no, it's okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lorindo.
None.
Mr. McIntyre.
No questions.
Nor do I, so Mr. Story, please proceed with your
Okay, if I
presentation.
can pass this quickly, this is just, here's a revision to the front, just mathematical error. And then missing one.
This way, is this new evidence?
No, it's not the
Oh,
it's
it's
a
not.
correction of, still wrong, actually.
It's a new mathematical error.
We'll go unannounced.
Well, I disagree with the new evidence, but I mean, the board's already ordered or made a decision on that.
Well, it's still incorrect mathematical evidence. It's going to go to weight of the issues.
Yeah. Is it we passed out the revised one?
Sorry?
There's no revised in here.
Oh, this one was passed. You haven't passed out yet?
I just had,
No, that's,
Oh, that's,
well, I handed it whatever you gave me.
yeah, this is this, can I see that one back for a minute? Thank you, we're almost there. Oh, this one I was looking for, thank you so much.
Well, I put an
Everybody
extra copy there for you.
has- Okay. I got it.
Well,
Oh, you want it back?
well, I'd like a copy if you're gonna,
Oh, I was gonna give it, just use it.
there's that one there too that I just put down as an extra copy.
You have 3 copies right now. Michelle needs 1 copy.
Okay.
take
This
it.
one, and so is this one different?
Yeah, there's 2. One is the revision and the other is on the square footage, the allocation.
I don't get it. Oh, there it is. That's the revision.
Yeah.
Yeah, the revision, sorry, John.
I don't need that copy.
I'll be very brief.
Same
All-
numbers.
They're exactly the same.
It's the same.
Exact same sheet?
Yeah.
She gave us.
Mr. President,
What are you trying to correct?
Yeah,
It says revision on it. It's got yellow at the top. You better-
yeah, but it's the
Yeah.
same numbers.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what?
exactly the same number.
Oh, they just made it pretty, okay. And then, could I see that paper?
I don't know what you know. Here.
Well, there's one number that's different. The 5634, on your sheet here, it says 5568.
Okay. We're asking for 11 and a half.
That's this, wait, hold on, that's the case.
8% cap
That's
rate.
because this is wrong here. It's not appropriate assessment, it's appropriate assessment twice,
Yeah.
rather than, you must have did a copy paste there.
Sorry about that. And then if we go to the other one really quickly, we'll get this over. The last handout, again, goes the same methodology, is hopefully in due course we'll be able to break this down, and but we're using 31,225. There is no mezzanine, there's no basement, so we did a 60-20-20 split, and we've applied what we think is a reasonable big box for non-polar park area of 8, and a flex warehouse rate of 10, and that comes to 1095, and we're just in support of 1150. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Poole, do you have questions?
Same rationale, do you have any marketplace evidence of any kind?
No?
All the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lorindo.
No.
Mr. McIntyre.
No questions.
Nor do I. Okay. We'll move on. Just give me 1 minute, please. I just need to make a couple notes. Okay, you need
This one's wrong, you said.
this, you need this.
The new one? I
Okay.
No, I just need to rip all the stuff that he handed out, the
Okay.
documents.
Okay.
Wasn't there another one?
This is all I have on that file.
1,400?
I don't know. Okay, sorry. Okay, the next matter on the docket is 2400 McPhillips Street.
File number is 194670. Roll number is 0500942460. Civic address is 2400 McPhillips. The 2020 assessment is for $5,901,000. We have the exact same non-compliance and deferral matter. If you turn to page 59, again, they do not report their expenses. They check off owner occupied, so they are in possession and control over that information. If you look at the company searches afterwards on page 63 and onwards, you'll see that they are owner occupied and they do have possession and control over that.
Sorry, which, okay, sorry, we went fast, okay.
So
Sorry, proceed.
it's carbon copy for the other ones today. So based on that, we're asking for non-compliance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
And again, no second letter was sent out, you know.
They responded, they just didn't fill it out properly. It's failure due to inadequacy.
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Lorendo?
None.
Mr. McIntyre? Nor do I, so do you have anything you would like to say?
No, just again, the material is sent in. If the city has a problem, they typically send out a second letter, or they could call. That isn't the case here, and I don't believe that the penalties are being enforced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take a recess and discuss this matter. Thank you. All right, the board has met to consider the evidence before us, and we are denying the application for non-cooperation pursuant to Section 53(3)B of the Municipal Assessment Act. Mr. Cole, please proceed with your presentation.
The property is a full-service dealership, as we're doing with all today. Built in 2003, gross floor area of 34,852 square feet. If we look on our page 8 is the subject property, located on the Phillips, just kitty corner to Templeton. And on the following pages are a few aerial photographs and elevations of the property. Again, same argument in full that we put today. Average, median, and weighted average in around $18 a square foot for the rent on page 3. Page 4 is the workup. We have approximately 34,852 square feet at an average of $12.73 a square foot. Produce a potential gross income of $443,669. Our standard parameters apply. Potential rent is reduced by vacancy by 2% to give us an effective gross income of $434,796. Expenses are at 2%, shortfalls at $6, which gives us a net operating income of $421,918. Capped at 7.15% gives us a capitalized value of $5,901,000. So if we look again, same idea. We've already reviewed the I&E, but and again, if you want, they're owner occupied. There is a rent, it is a book rent. Obviously not an arm's length rent. They're owner occupied. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Lorendo?
No, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
No questions.
Nor do I. So Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, we have a bit of a handout again, just again the rationale.
Can I just hand this to the secretary? We already did the argument in the first hearing, but the same
Okay.
submission for the rest of them, or for the first of the rest of the bills.
No, we have to know. Michelle, you've already got this, you can just keep them all.
Yeah, that's what no, that's what I meant, like, that's
Oh,
for
you
you,
want them for
that's for
all?
you.
Yeah, these are for your files.
We did the
All of them?
argument, yeah, we
Oh,
did
you
the
want
argument for the
them
first
for
one, and then this
file.
just carries over to
Sorry.
the rest. Been a long time, maybe it is anyway.
Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you very much. This is a newer car dealership. It's kind of the current image of car dealerships. It's roughly 35,000 square feet, 34,852. It does have a mezzanine. The mezzanine is used for the manager's office, general manager, Mr. Cross, Jason Cross, and also a county up there on the second floor. What we've done is we're suggesting that the general space be at $11.50 a square foot, the mezzanine be at $10 a square foot, for an NOI of $337,643, to which we apply 8%, which is the typical cap rate for retail at 7.44 plus an adjustment because it's